Thomas Green here with Ethical Marketing Service. On the episode today, we have Sanal Bhanu Rajan. Sanal, welcome.
Thank you. I'm happy to be here.
Very happy to have you. Would you like to take a moment and tell the audience a bit about yourself and what you do?
I'm a spiritual mentor. Uh, I do coaching with people. Also, I teach in universities. And I teach about how to have more mastery over our own mind and how to influence our mind in such a way that is allows us to create the kind of results that we want to create with our life. And yeah, I would say that's a
Well,
short version of it.
thank you for the introduction. What would you say are the most common, should we say, mistakes, if you would even frame it that way, around people using their mind?
Not taking accountability or ownership for the experiences they are having, and blaming essentially uh, also creates a lot of disempowerment within the mind.
In
Yeah.
what way?
Like when you're blaming, you are renouncing responsibility because the it does a, you are giving away the responsibility to something else on the external world. And the moment you give away responsibility, you also lose power because power and responsibility they go hand in hand. So you don't have any power, you don't have any responsibility either. So in a way, you lose power over making any sort of changes or influencing the very experience that you're having by blaming and not taking ownership of our experiences. Yeah.
I certainly, I would be on your. I think I would take your view in relation to this topic, so we're on the same page. I am interested to know what you think about the topic of are there certain things which do merit blame? Meaning, are there certain things that are out of our control? Do you make exceptions there, or and to what percentage would you say is in our control and not in our control?
Well, in that matter, I am more kind of tilting towards the Stoic principles of the Ring of Power. The Rings of Power essentially is a concept where anything that's within the ring, you do have power over it and can influence it and make differences on the matter. And whatever is outside of the ring, you don't have power over. So essentially, anything that you do not have any power over making any difference right now, you would put that into circumstance. You would include that into the circumstance, including the very state that you find yourself in. So if you don't really feel like you have much of an influence over even changing the way you are feeling, so you can even take that, consider that also as a part of circumstance. And then once you make a clear distinction between the circumstances, and now you get to look at what all is your choices in relation to that situation. Uh, so you can literally ask yourself if all of this is circumstances, where about is my choices? So asking a question like that makes your mind or creates a certain sort of an orientation within your mind where your mind start looking for choices. And the moment you find choices, you don't feel yourself as a victim to the circumstance, or you don't feel yourself powerless in the circumstance because a choice always goes hand in hand with power. Uh, and the more choice you have, the more power you have. So essentially, as you seek choice, you are also gaining power.
Yeah, I
The
love that
same.
answer. I do find in some instances there are people who perhaps will tell you that they don't have any control when perhaps they do. Have you got any thoughts around that topic?
Yeah, yeah. When they, that's why I said when they don't have any power over, and especially when it comes to the way they are feeling in the moment, they can take that as the part of circumstance, and maybe they can even gesture it. They can even acknowledge, even put a hand on the chest or something, or on your heart, and you can literally say, I see you, I hear you, I acknowledge you. And if there is a wish inside you for this feeling to be different, acknowledge that too. And then you can go on into acknowledging the truth of the moment by saying something like, there is a part of me that is feeling this way right now. Let's just say if it's a disempowering state, like a sadness or a state of feeling insecure or a state of feeling anger or whatever the feeling is. So you can bring about changes within the feeling by literally asking yourself the kind of questions that will allow you to look at that situation differently. So taking different perceptual positions becomes like a very key um, capability that allows you to have a different experience of the moment, you know, gives you different choices because you are experiencing different things in the moment. Of course, you see a different set of choices as you have a different experience. Yeah.
Have you got any examples of how you've changed your perception and how much it's changed the situation?
Yeah. Um, Sometimes there is not so much the situation is going to change. It's so much as changing the relationship that you have with the situation. So it's a nuanced aspect there because we as human beings we relate to everything, people to places to things to situations to um, to everything. Everything we form a relationship, and our relationship with things shapes our experience of being with those things. So we do have power when it comes to shaping those relationships or influencing those relationships that we have with things. So let's just say I have a pain in my body, and it's not so much a matter of doing something and stopping the pain or something, more about being at ease with the pain and being able to sit with it. Um, so, in that sense, let's just say if I have like a relationship where I hate the pain, it's gonna make my life more difficult to be with it, you know? So what you cannot be with will not let you be. So there is wisdom in statements like that. So just shifting that relationship by going into it, by shifting the very concepts, the organization of reality that you have uh, around that pain, those very stories that I build around the pain, I can make shifts to that. I can make shifts to that, and that allows me to have a different way of being with that pain, um, and more harmoniously, I would say, more graceful. Meet it,
I
meet
think
the
pain's a really
situation.
good example actually, because if you're a gym goer and let's say you have a really good workout and the following day you're in pain, it's a very different pain than if you're, say, ill. If you're ill,
Mhm.
you're a lot more unhappy than when you just went to the gym and worked hard, but it's essentially, it could be the same thing. So
Yeah,
you
yeah.
touched upon something which the topic of doing versus being, I think I'm very guilty of just what can we do about it rather than being comfortable being. Would you mind, just for the sake of people who are in the same position as me, maybe just doing all the time, elaborating on that topic?
Yeah. So, it's the way I see it is the reality is always being created from the inside out. So, in that sense, being always comes before doing, and because we're always going through states of being all the time. At every given moment, we do have some state of being. And neurologically speaking, each of these state of beings, the average or the maximum length of it is anywhere from 10 to 30 seconds. But we don't feel like we experience these states for 30 seconds because we recreate it by reflecting on the state as soon as it begins. So it just starts over a whole new thing. So we keep kind of recreating similar or uh, kind of states that gives us the sense that, oh, I'm feeling this emotion for a long period of time, but it's just not real. So what I essentially came to say is like the model in which I look at things is being, doing, having. So being is the place from where doing emerges, and having is the result that you have based upon your doing in the situation. Yeah. So being,
Just
doing,
to,
be,
I
do,
think
have.
it's kind of a profound point for me. Just to reiterate what you said, if there's an example of, let's say, you've lost your temper, perhaps something's happened, you're annoyed about it. Are you saying that the physical response to that is 30 seconds, but because if it lasts a whole day, like it messes up your whole day, it is only because what did you say, you're having that over and over again,
You're
you're the one doing it?
recreating the experience through participation by reflecting on the experience. You're like, oh, I hate the way I'm feeling right now. Why am I feeling this way? Why did this happen? So you're just each reflection starts over a whole new process. Instead, it's getting arised. So if you, that's why the mindfulness or the vipassana, the whole point of it is that you just be an observer and just not engage. So you just see the state arising and the state falling. It's not so much about the thoughts coming and going, but it's more so with also the states that comes and goes, and seeing the temporary nature of it. Once you don't participate, once you don't agitate, once you don't put in some sort of a stock on the fire and just make it burn, you know. And also,
Very
just the
interesting.
state is even more important when it comes to learning too, because everything that we learn is all state dependent learning, meaning you are learning something in a certain state, um, uh, and that particular state is the state in which that thing, the very thing that you learn, is easy to kind of come to you, you know. So the
Well,
way
we've
state that's cool. Yeah.
we've covered the perhaps how you don't go about it. You touched upon mindfulness and how that solves that problem. How often would you say you do mindfulness on a day-to-day basis?
Well, I don't do mindfulness from a day-to-day basis. I do approach it in a variety of different ways. So it's like all different ways of approaching the thing, So one way of approaching is like mindfulness, where you just literally do not engage with the mind. Like, so the state is coming, you just simply observe, just witness with no participation and see it slowly just fall, right? Or what I do is, what usually people do is they ask some sort of a question. Oh, I hate this feeling. So first they make a reflection, and then they will go into saying something like, "Oh my God, why am I feeling this way?" And that makes them go even deeper into the labyrinth, because the very question kind of like demands them to bring up even more content to defend the very state that they are experiencing. So the moment you ask, why am I feeling this way? You start going even further. So what I do instead is, the moment I'm experiencing a state that I can feel is kind of instantly as a disempowering state, that disempowering state for me is any kind of state that where I'm struggling or suffering in the way I'm handling the moment, in the way I'm handling the situation. Yeah. So if I find myself in a state like that, my first question wouldn't be, why am I feeling this way? But I would be asking myself the question, okay, what am I creating right now? Or what am I choosing to create right now? So the moment I ask a question like that, the question creates a certain orientation, because every question has hidden presuppositions within it. So it creates a certain sense of direction or an orientation for you, and from where you find all sort of possibilities and opportunities and ideas kind of coming in that particular direction. So when I'm asking the question, what am I creating right now? It instantly puts me in a position of power, because it presupposes the fact that I am the creator of whatever it is that I'm experiencing, because I'm asking, what am I creating right now? So the question is presupposing that I am the creator. So the question is posed from there. Yeah. So the question creates and instantly puts me in a place of power. Or I would ask myself the question, okay, what is it that is happening right now? You know, that immediately disembed me from the experience that I'm having. So allows me to go meta on my experience and take a bird's eye view of what is going on. Then I'm looking, okay, what is it that is happening here? So when I'm asking that question, I'm not really necessarily looking for the facts of what is happening outside on the external world, but I'm looking at essentially the processes that are responsible for me having the experience, because I'm taking 100% ownership of my experience if I see myself as the creator of my experience. So, and I'm asking myself the question, what am I creating right now? That question already is also takes in ownership in a indirect way. So I'm owning my experience fully. I'm not blaming at all. I'm not looking for any reasons outside that is responsible for whatever experience I'm having. I'm not thinking my experience has anything to do with the reality, because usually it doesn't. Otherwise, we would all be having one reality uh, to one particular thing. But thankfully, we don't.
Well, I love the answer, and I think it is applicable to the previous example that you gave about someone recreating their experience over and over again. But it does segue into something which I was going to ask you about, which is inferences, because you did a video which I checked out on essentially people presupposing certain things. Would you mind
Yeah.
sharing that for people who haven't seen it?
Oh, yeah, yeah, of course. It's a principle that I took from the field of general semantics by Alfred Kowinsky. So the idea is that the chain of inferences that we make in order to make sense of a situation, how we make one inference, and from that inference we make a further inference, and we make a further inference, and a further inference, further inference. And the thing is, the more inferences we start making, it's easy to make things really personal, really, really personal. And you start to think it has something to do with you, start reading into the situation, and you start to assume. And it's also another principle from neuro-linguistic programming where it's also from general semantics, the principle of mind reading, where people consider themselves as mind readers. They think when they see something that they know something about what that means. And if instead of going through that chain of inferences, instead of reading into that, if you stay just with the information that you have, whatever the person is showing, whatever expression or gesture or facial expression is happening, instead of reading into it, you stay with the information, stay on the level of information and curiosity. So now curiosity is a beautiful thing because it's a very open-ended thing, But assumption is more of like a closing in sort of thing. We are trying to close in and conclude. Whereas curiosity is like, whatever it could be. So you're kind of open for a variety of different possibilities to emerge with it, and you're not really biased so much, So you're like being like a scientist there. So if someone is making an expression, you're like, they made an expression like that. Well, I really wonder what it could mean, Just staying there, it allows you to be a more dynamic, better communicator than the person who is making inferences and making things personal and losing their groundedness and poorly engaging with the situation as a result. Yeah.
Thank you for the explanation. I think it's probably a versus what I'm about to ask you about is it's a preferable option in the sense that we're flawed creatures and therefore asking good questions is going to be preferable. But what do you think about the people who speak about intuition and the topic of like going with your gut on things, which is essentially making assumptions?
Yeah, I would say intuition is also kind of way of being informed. Intuition is in my we have an internal representation system within. In simple words, we can call it a map, which we use to make sense of what is going on in the moment. So recognizing that it's a map that we have that allows us to make sense of things in a however particular ways we make sense of. And if you don't mistake the map for the territory, now that gives you a lot of flexibility when it comes to moving through life, because you can look into the map and you can see, the map is not so good when it comes to moving through this kind of scenarios and this kind of life situations. So I can make some sort of an enrichment, the updation within the map, transform the map and enrich it so that I can move through with more harmony. So that's a completely different direction as opposed to you looking at the life situation like, I'm done with it. That's not for me. I'm not gonna be able to. I'm not that kind of person, and I'm not gonna be able to handle that kind of situations and all that.
Yeah, I know what you mean. I want to ask you more about kind of a macro question more than anything, a little thought experiment. If you could have a magic wand and you could change society, what's the one thing you'd choose?
Well, I would choose to decondition some of these ideas that we have regarding uh, what will happen at the end, you know,
Do you mean
because
death?
yeah, exactly. So we do have a lot of ideas that we gain about what's going to happen at the end. And some of these ideas, we have taken it for a fact, and we just stop being curious, and we move through life with much less of a wonder and curiosity for or what all this is, you know, and who you really are in all of this, and the wonder and the curiosity getting lost around that. And instead of coming to this conclusion, so oh, I'm this, I'm that, I'm soul, I'm nothingness, you know, just staying open because nobody has ever gone back and come and told like, hey, yeah, this is the deal or something. So we can all read through from the subjective experience we have through meditation, through many things. But yet at the end, that's yeah, I consider that still something that we make sense of it, and it's kind of like a map again, and not mistake the map for the territory, and that allows you to move through life with a more excitement for and wonder and magic for all that is waiting for us, I guess.
It's very interesting that you chose that. Can I ask why? Why is that the thing that you, if you could change one thing, why did you choose that?
Because that made like a huge difference for me because I personally was had a lot of conditioning around what would happen, and it's not that it basically was creating a lot of suffering or a lot of struggles inside me with it, sitting with it. I had no struggles with any of it. But the fact that when I was completely, I came to that place of like, but whatever that may be, I don't really know. Do I really know 100% absolutely for sure that is the whole truth? No, I don't really know. And I'm okay with that. I'm okay with not knowing. And there's, and for me, that has kind of brought in a lot of beauty to life, which sometimes with spirituality we kind of lose because there's a lot of this truth addiction that we develop with spirituality, like, and so much of these truths that we take as, uh, swallow it whole and just makes life extremely boring. You know, yeah.
Well, thank you for the answer. I appreciate it. And I think the other thing that I wanted to ask you about was just your thoughts on the ego, and if you've got anything that you would want to share there.
Well, ego ego in my opinion is more of a simplistic term for what we call in psychology as the autobiographic self. So autobiographic self is basically the stories that you are telling to yourself about yourself to make sense of yourself in the world. So it's through these stories that you understand yourself. So for me, ego is not just thoughts, not just I thought or something, but it's a collection of whole stories, And we can make changes to it. We can make changes to it, but ego, whosoever we are, we do tend to get attached to the stories that we kind of settle with and start to share with people. And we start to mistake these stories for the truth of who we are, and it kind of takes away a lot from us in life. It doesn't, it just kind of makes you lay low and hang back in situations where you probably should be rising up and striving forward and taking action and, going for those opportunities, which taking those chances, which sometimes we don't because of these really disempowering stories or narratives that we hold about ourselves. So for me, it's about finding these stories, especially the habitual stories of description that we have about ourselves, that we have gotten so used to just carrying along with us and just telling everyone.
What do you think about because I am 100% on board with what you're saying. The thing I wonder about is whether or not some of those stories are obviously false, but what about the stories that are true? Is it okay to tell yourself a story if it's disempowering but also true?
You see, that's the thing. There is no story that is true. The thing is, what your description about something is never what you are describing. That's why it's essential to remember the map is not the territory. So, however you describe it, that's never going to be the truth of it, because reality is not made of words and concepts. So, as a literal representation is impossible. What we get to have is a perception of the situation, and that's all we ever get to have, and the very perception um, forces us to delete and take away a lot of information, the totality of all the information, to create that perspective, right? so so truth is not there. Truth is kind of like the actual land, which we do not get to have in the hand. We get to have a map in of the land in our hand, and the point is not whether can my map the true map. No, the question is the map useful? It's a very simple question. How useful it is, the map that you have. When so the question is the stories useful, not whether the stories are true or not. It's about, is this useful for me in life? Is this taking me forward in life? Or is this, making me lay low in my life? Yeah. So that's the question. So just like whatever you believe, you can choose to bring about a different story into your life. You can commit to writing a different story. You can commit to not saying those disempowering stories anymore and choose to say the empowering ones, because you can always look into those same situations and ally with your strengths and shift those narratives and make it empowering ones. All you have to do is just take in a fresh look, take in a fresh perspective on that same situation, and you'll find it. Yeah.
Well, I love the answer, but my literal brain can't help but come up with examples that I want to ask you about. So,
Mm-hmm.
and I think it's totally true what you said, but I'd still want to ask you about certain examples and get your thoughts on it.
Mm-hmm.
So, for example, like if you went out one day and someone
Yeah.
kicked you in the leg, like you're walking down the street perfectly normal, and someone comes up to you and kicks you in the leg. Is
Mm-hmm.
it true to say that someone kicked you in the leg, or is it just a matter of using that as a potential interpretation?
I mean, somebody kicked in the leg, and that is okay. There is nothing about that is going to really make me struggle and suffer unless I just make up a whole bunch of stories about it. But why did they come and kick me? What did I do? Why me? Now I am starting to create stuff. you know
Would you say it is true that someone did that, but it's not necessarily true if you make a bunch of stories up that are disempowering?
Yeah, I mean, things happen, things happen all the time. There is no rule in the universe that says nobody can kick on your leg, it's just like anything can happen. I mean, we cannot just stop our life because something random happened, right? It's just, but usually those kind of things are not what really eats away our happiness. It's usually more of psychologically heavy stuff.
Comes
More
back to what you
of
said about people recreating their own
exactly. So
experiences.
you go into the past and a lot of stuff. You bring up a lot of stuff from the past to the present, and yeah, that's the way usually people tend to create a lot of internal struggles and suffering. In the moment sort of thing, it can agitate, but but it can just also kind of disappear pretty fast. It's like more like the drawing on the water kind of stuff. It's not everything leaves a mark.
Well, I love the conversation, and I had no idea I was going to ask you about kicks to the leg today. But is there anything that I should have asked you about?
Well, you could have asked you can ask me in general, in relation to what we were just speaking right now. Whatever story it is that you are having a disempowering one, you can simply shift it by simply aligning with your strength by looking at it from the perspective of you handled it. You know, your own competence in handling those situations. Because whatever we have in common right now is that we are alive. That means we have handled whatever it has come our way until now. So the efficiency or uh, the comparison of how well you have handled it and this and that can kind of go on in your head. But regardless of all of that, the fact that you have handled it is indisputable. I mean, otherwise we wouldn't be here right now. So you can always look at those, you can narrow in on that. You can always look at, okay, what are the strengths that I brought into the table that allows me to consistently handle whatever challenges and situations that life is throwing at me. Seems like I am still here, you know. So how am I doing this? How did I learn these skills? What made me become good at those things? So that's how you can tune in and focus in on the strengths and look at yourself through the lens of competence instead of looking at yourself through the lens of incompetence, for example. Yeah, instantly
Well, thank you
creates
for
that
that.
first empowering shift to the narrative.
I appreciate that, and I think you got a lot of great content which people should go and watch. It's not very often. Often it's the case that you see people who they're sort of like you can put them in a category of things that they do, but with yourself, I think you putting out a lot of information which is very intelligent and well worth looking at. So thank you for doing that. If people do want to go look at the videos or perhaps connect with you, where do they go?
Well, they can go to masterclass.spiritualogic.com. So that is SPIRI2TUAL, spiritual logic. So with one L, so spiritual logic. So masterclass.spiritualogic.com. People can put in their email there and can go and watch a 1 hour, 20 minutes of a masterclass, and also can go and check out my website, www.spiritualogic.com, and learn more about how this methodology works and the people who have um, who I have coached with this framework, and the results they have had, the case studies with people, you can all find it in the website. And my time in India in teaching in universities, you can see some snippets of videos of that. And plus, also the people who are watching the podcast right now, I would like to offer them a gift, so they can go over to the website www.podcastgiftnow.com, uh, and can put in their email and can get access to 8 or 9 hours of professionally recorded videos of talks I have given here in live. Yeah.
Wow, that sounds great. So thank you for doing that as well. Do you have any closing thoughts for us today?
My closing thoughts would be to have congruence in life. To have congruence in life allows us to move through life and get a lot of things done with the least amount of energy spent for it. It's kind of like a laser beam as opposed to a 5 volt bulb. You know, when there's congruence, you need very little energy to get things done. So to bring about congruence in life, it's it's all you need is just three things. You just need to know what is it that you want out of life, and what kind of person, how would you be as a person when you have this outcome. You know, connect to that energy, connect to that state. You know, and see what adjustments that you can make right now to enhance and grow that state even further. You know, and also knowing what's really important for you to being this person moving forward in life, what that means. So being clear on this value, being clear on the person that you want to be, and also being clear on the outcome that you want, having clarity on these three things allows you to have a congruency inside out, which so that's many of the reason for most of the people feeling tired most of the time, and not getting things done is because they lack this, they lack the congruency. They are not really connecting to the state. And it's easy to connect to the state if we know something that we really want. If we can go into your imagination and connect to, how would you be as a person when you get that outcome done, you can really start to feel that feelings, and you can do things to make that feeling even grow further. And the more you are having that feeling, that guess what, you're gonna be moving through like a laser, just like that. That's what's gonna happen.
I just feel relaxed talking to you, so thank you for that. And
No, I
Sanal, thank you
appreciate
for
hearing
being a
that.
great guest today.
Yeah, it's my pleasure to be here, and I really enjoyed the co-creation that we had with this podcast, the questions and everything, because I can also only say based on whatever the question is bringing about also. And it's not like I'm saying it either. It's all kind of emerging in the moment. It's not really, there's no way to exactly linearly know what exactly I'm going to say or something, right? So I'm happy that it just flew beautifully. Yeah.
All right, thanks, Sanal.